All right, you loyal listeners. Welcome to another episode of Agency Intelligence Podcast, where I give you that real agency intelligence and not that artificial that they try to make you believe out there. Man, I tell you what, Landry, the more time goes on, the more that actually becomes true, not the artificial the artificial they try to tell you out there. And the reason is starting to realize when I start to go talk to a lot of vendors on the stuff we're going to talk about, I don't think they're all telling the truth. I understand sometimes I don't think they're intentionally lying. I think it's hard to explain to an agent everything that goes on. But then there's people out there that are just not even using AI that they're saying they're using that. And that's some of the stuff we need to talk about. But anyways, everybody, welcome once again to the Beepin' Podcast. Landry Fields. Landry, tell me how the last, we talked a little bit. That was about 3-4 weeks ago where I had you come in. So many people were just blown away by that. They said, dude, just absolutely lost me. He said, but one of these days, I heard this. A guy said, one of these days, I'll know what he's talking about because it'll be everyday talk. And he was right about that. And that's good. Landry, since we've been together, tell me about the insurance world and technology and what the hell is going on out there, man.
Yeah, man, like we talked about, it's changing so rapidly. And I've been getting asked so many times as far as just how do I learn more and more about this aspect of things. And it's right. And in one sense, it's hard because it's changing so rapidly. I could tell you one thing and then immediately a week later, it's changed and flipped on a dime again. So It's kind of a two-headed dragon there as far as that goes. But I realized that there is a lot of the industry out there that you and I obviously converse with each and every day. They're hungry to learn about this and learning where it's going to happen, what spaces it's going to change. And but there's just a real need to learn kind of like, where is this going to be going? How do I start now? And then, as you know, there's a lot of agencies that just really have never really truly started in a lot of this tech stuff that we've been kind of obviously this journey we've been on for 5 to 10 years. And I get it type of scenario, but the cat's out of the bag and AI's here. It's not going anywhere and it's going to change everything we're doing on a daily basis. And we can definitely dive more into that. It's been crazy. I've even got more updates even since what was it, 2-3 weeks ago. And so obviously there's more things even since then that have happened and I've been playing around with. So,
it's absolutely wild. It's absolutely almost halfway nutty. Here we've been, Landry, when did you get into the industry? When was your first year?
2019. So, a lot of this stuff has been more from the basis of I've got to find a way to be a disruptor and to gain traction with not having the budget of a 40-year legacy agency.
But what have you been in? 4 or 5 years? How long have you been in the industry?
6 years.
6 years. And you've owned your agency the whole time?
That's right.
That's fantastic. Now, here's the thing, though, and you may probably remember this. You definitely heard it back in 2020 or 2005, 2010. The saying was, this industry is so far behind. Everything moves so slow. The carriers control everything. So we move when they move.
Yeah.
And man, when the insure tech and the agents kind of split to the outside and actually blew right by the carriers are still sitting there, and they're transforming only based on the fact that we are. But it's amazing now. Now, as you said, it's moving so fast. It is incredible. It's amazing. The things, as you said, that I came out with a brand new presentation last summer, and I had it prepared for this fall and this spring. I had to quit doing it in the spring because what's the stuff I was talking about that I had created last summer for last fall was like, people are like, no, that's not the way it is. I'm like, no, it's not that way anymore. So it's crazy. It's crazy. So what's changing? What's happening in your office, Landry, that you think is not happening in other agencies?
Let me get to that. But I think the first case, let's just real quick. I think an easy example I've been trying to tell people, and as crazy as this sounds, you won't think it's crazy, but I know some will. Is I keep bringing up Iron Man 2 when he just goes, Daddy's home, wakes up Jarvis and starts doing all the stuff he can do by communicating with the AI in that. And I love that clip more and more these days because I'm like, I know it sounds crazy, but that is where we're going, whether we're physically speaking to it or typing to it type of scenario. Maybe right now we're kind of typing to it, but that's a better idea of where we're going as you and I, and even our employees. I keep bringing up this example over and over and over of a symphony. I may have used it on our last podcast, but I'll just say it again real quickly, in that we are more and more going to become the conductors of that symphony. And so,
Orchestrators, you're exactly right, sir. Nope, you're
and
right.
so, but our employees and our agents and our staff will also be becoming more and more moving into that role, becoming managers of AI in different aspects where things are going to be alleviated from their plate. And they're going to have these new skill sets they're going to have to kind of pivot to, of becoming almost like managers themselves. So I think that's just a very simple high level view of where we're kind of headed.
We're going to talk about it many, many more times, but please, loyal listeners, hit your back button. If you've got the Spotify, I think it goes back 15 or 30 seconds. I don't know what the hell Apple does, but click it a couple times and listen to what Landry just said, because that is the key. Orchestrators. So if you go to agencyintelligencemanual.com, agencyintelligencemanual.com, I want you to go there. I want you to download what I've created. I know this is coming out probably middle into June. I want you to actually go there. Landry and I are recording this on 5/28 at 8:19. I have had listeners over the last 4 or 5 years that tell me they like it when I tell them the date and time. Landry, it's the wildest thing. All my loyal listeners are different. So I always forget sometimes to do that, but they love to know when it was actually recorded. So that is the date on the newspaper. Now, Landry, as I asked, what are you doing? The simple things, right? Mm-hmm. And then what do you see yourself doing by the end of the year?
So let me start with the simple things. I think, like we said, everybody really just needs sometimes some coaxing into the, where do I start? And I've kind of been saying this for a little bit, but we need to kind of, I think, be moving away from the ChatGPT aspect. I think that's a great learning place and learning tool. And if you haven't been around on that platform and developing custom GPTs, that's obviously step one to kind of at least start. But if not, I've been moving more and more everything over to, I'm on the Google Workspace side of things. Which at this point, Google's a little bit further than the Copilot Microsoft, but at the end of the day, eventually all of them are going to catch up to each other, right? All these LLMs, large language models is what we're talking about. ChatGPT, Gemini for Google, Copilot for Microsoft. So you got Claude, and then there's 100 others out there. Maybe we have aspects of where we eventually have, our own LLMs in-house type of scenario. I don't know if I'm fully buying that one yet, if I'm being honest, because of the fact that I think Gemini and Copilot, in these ecosystems we already use each and every day. Which one are you on, by the way, Cass? Are you on
I'm Google Office 365. So.
Okay. And I know I'm in a little bit of the minority on the Google side of things, but you can create custom GPTs, create custom things. And really a lot of times what that comes down to is just custom prompts, and loading up that information in its brain. And so playing around with either custom GPTs and Copilot, custom gems and Gemini is a great place to start, because really when we talk about AI, whether it's comparing quotes and coverages, and we've seen some of the AI companies out there that have kind of hey, we do this and we can compare. I'm like, well, yeah, but we can also compare if you do a strong enough prompt. And I think prompting is the thing as far as educating ourselves and learning how to do that more and more. We can kind of do that right there already within Gemini or Copilot most of the time. I just did it last night to compare two policies, and there's nothing proprietary in the policies. But from a security standpoint, I mean, Google and Copilot are pretty secure in that sense. The amount of stuff we already put through email each and every day,
especially please, Landry,
it's not going to be that big. And I say that having family deep in the AI security space, they're like, yeah, I'm fine with Google and Microsoft. Like, they're already secure enough. And so if we're putting our stuff into our own ecosystems we already have, Copilot or Gemini, I think that's a fear we don't need to worry about necessarily right now, especially from insurance, where most of the time all I'm really doing is maybe a birthday address and
Landry,
name.
I truthfully believe, bro, it's excuses. Loyal listeners, I'm rough on you on this, because there is 1-2% of you that really are like, no, Cass, I'm concerned about security, because that's just who you are. But I think the others are excuses. I think they're the same people who worry about not doing things because they don't want Uncle Sam to track them, but yet they drive around with a cell phone. Right? All these things that don't make any sense. I've said this before, as you just said. The stuff that's written on Gemini is literally sitting on the same Google Drive that we have all of our client information on anyways, because in this world we live in, what do we not have if we don't have trust? Everything we have in our life is built on trust. I've just got to trust OpenAI that they tell me they're not using to train their models, and it's secure within their system. Now, I want to also hit on something else you said. For everybody out there who's trying to use Copilot, I get this a lot. Copilot's junk right now. It really truly is. They kind of threw it in there. It does. Please understand, I have a full-time director of technology and a CTO, and they've all told me we still use OpenAI as our GPTU center of where we're pulling our technology from. So I want to ask you this. I've been told from a lot of people who are in this space that what I think everybody's building to the agentic AI, but a lot of people have already built to it, but we've all stopped. And whatever, that's the next floodgate that's waiting to open. And what's actually preventing it is the cost of the GPUs, the actual computing power that is needed is not cheap enough yet on a very local level. So a lot of people are piping into Gemini, piping into that open API or open AI. And I want to get your thought on that because I'm hearing that it could be up to 12 months before it's actually able to get down to an affordable level, because they say when they do that, we then can get away from the generalization of a Gemini or OpenAI and actually start creating industry-specific LLMs. But what do you think about that? Tell me about that world, Landry.
I could see that maybe.
Okay, come on.
But I could see that. But I guess what I'm thinking about, when we talk about where I'm going here by the end of the year type of scenario, as we move to that agentic AI, we've been in generative AI right now, like we talked about, a prompting. I help generate what's happening. The agentic AI is the idea of I kind of spearhead an idea, and the AI is therefore now taking that and doing what it wants to kind of get to the resolution that you are desiring. Case in point, most of us have been using Zapier for years, or at least played around with Zapier, right? Yes, it's Zapier for anybody that doesn't know that yet. It is Zapier. I've heard it directly from the people at Zapier before, just two weeks ago when I was on a call with them. But there's a new, if anybody's familiar with that, here's a good way to play around with the agentic side of things. If you are on the Zapier website that a lot of us have at least kind of played around with, there is now a tab on the left-hand side there that says agents. And so when we talk about agents, there's things called NAN. I won't even get into all the stuff you can utilize out there, but most people are familiar with Zapier, so I'll stick with that. You can go in there, click on it. It opens a different browser window scenario, still using the existing APIs, but right now it's at least making these APIs more of we've lived in an RPA world for so long, which is, when this trigger happens, I need this to happen. And you set up every single step along the entire process to the end result, right? That's what we've been used to in this automation world. I think the new word we need to be using now for AI is delegation, because we don't have to be the one automating every single step. The AI can figure that out. And so therefore you're delegating that to them. So under that AI aspect of Zapier, been playing around with this, and here's an easy way for people kind of to start. Most of us, or some of us, already had Google reviews auto reply to by AI. We've already, maybe some of us have set that up before in Zapier. I know a lot of people have. Well, I was like, I want to redo this and just test it. And so it's a good way to do it. Maybe if you haven't done it, or if you want to, you just go into that new AI agent in Zapier. You literally, with common language, and this is what I said, if I get a 4 or 5 star Google review, leave a short, concise, friendly, to the point message, leave politics and all this other stuff out of it. If it's a Google review of 3 stars or less, send me a note on Google Chat. So because we're on Google Chat, not the team side of things. That's all I said. It then fills in each step it needs to, figures out the apps that I've kind of noted that it needs to be using, puts those in there in the specific steps. And it's like, it's done. That took me, as long as it took me to say that, as long as is basically how long it took me to set that up. It works. It does what it's supposed to be doing. It connected all the apps that I needed to do. If there's an app that it needs, or you specified that you haven't connected in Zapier yet, you still have to make that connection itself and put your login credentials there. But it does the whole thing. And if there's an error, the great part is you can actually chat with it and be like, hey, something's off here. Why did this happen? And you can just talk with the AI rather than beat your head into the ground, figuring out where's the error here on some kind of specific aspect, and it can walk you through and figure out where the error is with you. And so that's kind of an idea of, like I said, the Iron Man 2, Jarvis, just you kind of tell you what you want, and it starts going out and doing it. I heard a CEO a couple of weeks back, and he was talking about the future as far as marketing. Because let me put that on pause. I think the future, again, if we're speaking 12 months from now, or more like 2 years from now, but we're going to become more and more marketing agencies and technology agencies. What progressive has been is what we're going to become more and more of in a lot of ways. I think commercial is a lot, commercial is a lot harder because commercial is much more relational. And so I think I kind of have some reservations on where personal lines will go. And I think it's going to become more and more transactional in some ways in this new world. But the reality is, within 12 months, I keep telling people, you're going to get a phone call from an AI bot from somebody shopping the insurance for them. How are you going to handle that?
Right.
Let that sink in.
That is something I have never thought. Hit that back button again. Say it again, Landry. What are you going to do
within the next 12 months? We're going to be getting probably phone calls from AI that is shopping the insurance on behalf of a human. Google just had their big announcement on their newest stuff. I was watching it last week while I was sitting on my 15-year anniversary trip in Charleston. I'm on the beach. I'm like, I love sitting on the beach, but I'm like, I need to do something at the same time. That's just the way I'm wired. So I'm sitting there listening to the whole Google release, and they are showing you how on the Google Gemini app, which I use a lot now, as far as or Grok, where it starts just hitting a button and talking to it type of scenario, right? I'm just asking it questions. And the future of it is, it was showing a video example of a guy fixing a bike. He says, "Hey, I'm fixing this bike. Find the manual." He's just talking to it. His phone's sitting over there to the side. He's talking to it. Find the manual and figure out this part of it. And it goes, "All right, I found the manual. I've looked up this part. What do you need to know?" He's like, "All right, tell me about this portion of it." They're like, it talks back to him and says this. He's like, "Well, I think I'm missing a nut. What nut size do I need?" It says this. He says, "Call the bike shop that's closest to me and see if they have this part in stock." And it says, "Okay, I'll get back with you in a minute." The AI is then just calling the bike shop. You don't hear that part of the message. That's just like in the background. And it's then later on responds, "Yes, they have that part." And so that's what I'm thinking people is going to explode people's minds, realizing the AI will start doing so much stuff for us that we're going to be becoming more and more of marketing companies and technology companies. And finding ways to show that you're authentic human, I think will be valuable, which is why podcasts are great, which is why marketing stuff will show, hey, we're real at the end of the day, we're still real humans here. And so I think that's a real fear in that sense of not losing the human touch in that capacity. How do we marry that? But yeah, I mean, that's the reality of where we're going, and we're going to be there quicker than we think. And that's where we're going to be full agentic AI aspect of things. As far as that introduction into it, it's going to be very real.
It's weird to think about. We like being in groups and we don't like being alone. And we need to socialize because that's the way things have always been with lack of technology. There's this thought that if we start to do this again, we start to allow this, we're not going to think for ourselves. We're not going to have all this stuff. And I just don't see it that way. The other day I thought about this, Landry. I love examples. You've got a bunch of them too. You've got some really good stuff. When they came out with Google Maps, let's just say 20 years ago, maybe 15, okay? There's a whole generation almost two, that have never looked at a map except for Google to tell it where to go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have a pandemic of people who are walking around aimlessly who can't find their way around. If I told my 20-year-old, he's 20 now, if I told my 20-year-old son to drive to go see the St. Louis Cardinals or drive to Wentzville, which he's probably never been there, he could get there, right? He'd be able to figure it out, especially even if you gave him a map. I've never told him that, but it's just like common sense. You'd be like, "Oh, there's Edwardsville. There's St. Louis. Look, there's Wentzville. Okay, I don't think that's proven true. I don't. I actually know that now kids don't call their parents saying they're lost because they can't find their way. That's actually the good part of what's actually happening. Being able to track somebody on the map so you know where they are creates better safety. But I don't see it where kids are just aimlessly walking around and can't tell. Probably, just like most kids, like even when we were in, Jay Leno used to walk down the street and people didn't know who the president was that started America, I mean, and you just laugh that people don't know that, but they just don't know stuff like that. People can still get around, even though we all use Google Maps or whatever maps you use out there. So I just don't pose it to be true. I think there's things that we've brought up in society as humans that we actually need to shed. They call it the lizard brain sometimes, right? And we've
Mhm.
got to shed some of that stuff so that we can actually start thinking at a deeper intellectual level. I think personally, our relationships are stronger today than they were, let's say, in 1850. I don't know. I wasn't there. But did they sit around and tell each other that they loved each other? Did they share a bunch of stuff? Was it? I don't know. Maybe they did. But I'm just saying, I think in a technology world, I don't know. I think I have way more relationships today. Maybe they're as deep. I think some of my people that don't live close to me, I have deeper relationships the way I use it. But anyways, let's go
Yeah.
back. Another thing I see, Landry, is at the end of the day, I think it'll be speaking, but I almost see like the Google prompt. I see ChatGPT prompt where you will go to a website, whatever it is, and that's it, and you say, hey, I need to add or delete a vehicle, and it's going to go out and it's going to do all that shit just like you did. And it's going to come back and say, here it is. You're going to click approve. You know, if it's something that licensed, if it's not, if it's a mortgagee change, it just gets it done because it does it right 98.9% of the time. But
Mhm.
here's the other thing that I think once you get done making that change, you could get right back into that same prompt and say, hey, I need to deposit $69 into my personal checking. Like it's a prompt of everything. It's just one place, and you've
Yeah.
hooked up all of your, like, you know, maybe you don't even hook up all your stuff. It just goes to your Bitwarden, right? It logs itself in and does it. That's the simplicity I really see this all going to. And I think that's like 5-10 years away, but that's where
Yeah.
I see it going. What do you think about that, Landry?
No, yeah, I think 5 years away, that's definitely a possibility where we all have our own AI assistants for sure, doing basically, I need something done, it does it. For example, though, within 12 months, just from an agentic side of things, of doing tasks as it relates to internet and so forth. Like I said, that example I was going to mention, the CEO brought up is, marketing. Let's take that aspect and say, hey, I'm an insurance agency. You can just start talking to the AI, and this is going to be within 12 months. Be like, I want to create an ad for homeowners insurance to run. Run me a couple different options on what you think is going to be best, and get back to me. You just say that, it starts going, creating either images, pulling images from your drive if you've connected them, running script and copy, tweaking it, finding different variables because it's connected to your Facebook. It's then running A, B, C, different ad and figuring out what's the best one that's going to have the best results. Comes back to you within 48 hours and say, hey, this one is the one that's produced the best. Do you want to run this one on more of a full-time scale? And you're like, yes. All I did in that example, or in that CEO's example, is I said, hey, I want to run this ad for homeowners insurance, maybe a few other quick details. Show me what's the best way to do it. And then they said this was it. And I'm like, yeah, that works. And he said yes. And I'll go post it and run it for
You go into
14 days.
Facebook right now, you can't even control your audience. It's all generated by AI because they know AI is better than me and you trying to pick the damn audience. You just fill out some basic stuff. So you can see it already going that way. I'm with you. Hey, loyal listeners, did you hear what Landry said? I'll get back with you in 24, he said 48 hours. Upon helping me write my book and going over and talking to it for 75 hours, I had it on this project I'm working on, Landry. I asked it when I started, I said, I want you to keep time. I want you to keep the main milestones, all the changes, everything. This is what I'm going to want you. So now at the end of my presentation, I give all those things. Over 75 hours, it wrote, I think over, I don't know, it was over 140 hours combined. And so I want everybody to know this doesn't happen instantly. Maybe it does in 10 years and 5 years. But right now, you're going to see that for it to do an endorsement, it may take 20 minutes for it to do it. But the point is, it's doing it and you're not, and you're doing something else. Is that right, Landry?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I think a good way too, though, I wanted to mention this as far as Copilot, before I forget about this, and Gemini, again, places for people to really start. I mean, to Copilot's credit, it's going to get there. Okay?
Totally.
So
it will be the best. There. Yes, I agree.
At a certain point, all the AI spaces and guys in my family I'm talking to, they're like, eventually probably all the AI gets to all be the same level as far as its knowledge, right? So it's just more like right now we're all leapfrogging each other constantly on a weekly basis, but it's all going to eventually be, as we get closer and closer to what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is the idea that all the AI out there basically knows as much as the smartest person in that field. It will get to that point eventually. Now, but a great place to start is for the last 10 years, we've been building out these kind of internal websites so much, right? Intranet type of websites with our staff. And that's been a common thing. It's been great. However, I've actually moved a lot of that information off of our internal website and into, in our case, Google Drive. Microsoft is what, the OneDrive? Is that right?
That's right. OneDrive.
Yeah. And I know Copilot can already do this, so I'm not saying something Copilot can't do, which is you can create aspects of being able to search folders or drives within Copilot or Gemini. And so, for example, on Gemini, on my staff, if they have a shared folder, which they do now with a lot of the stuff, be like, hey, here's the folder with every single underwriting guideline, or here's a folder with every single policy jacket from this carrier, this carrier, this carrier, et cetera, right? Whatever you want it to be. All you have to do in Gemini, for example, is go ampersand, select Google Drive. It pops up the Google apps. You select Google Drive, and then you just start chatting with it right there to find the answer. 5 seconds later, you got the answer. What's my agency code for this? Yep. What is the dog breed, exclusions that are not allowed for this type of carrier? And so that's been an easy way for us to also work much more efficiently and moving a lot of that stuff over into our Google Drive. So it's because half the time the information's there. It's just a matter of like, how quickly can we find it? Mm-hmm. And that's been an easy step for my staff to kind of quickly get it. And it's been, I think, a baby stepping some of the staff too into using it more and more too, right? Here's an easy way of like, rather than searching the drive, just click this button and start asking it to find it type of scenario. I think for some of those staff, they're a lot more hesitant to it. As we know, the insurance agency world, there's a lot of older staff in that world. I get it. I'm pretty sure I've heard that like 50% of the workforce is supposed to retire in the next like 3 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that could be an easy way for people to kind of like baby step, because I think that's obviously the most pushback that we usually see and hear about is, well, my staff just doesn't, they've been doing something for 40 years. They don't want to change how they're doing it. And I get it. So finding ways to baby step people into this will be a good option.
And I can't say it enough. That's not going to work. Like in 2 years, you're not going to be able to do it. We're talking, people, 55% of your revenue is being spent on people. That's Reagan's best practices. So that tells me it's around 65%. Guys, Landry and Jason Cass are going to do it for less than 20% in literally 2 to 3 years. We're going to literally, in $1 million, spend $200,000 to $250,000 on a full thing with able to service a much more premium, and we're going to do it for far less. And you're going to be up there around 60. What business in the world could compete when they are being outspent or outsaved or outproduced or out efficiencyed, whatever the word is? This is a major thing. And guys, it's already being built. That's the thing. Now, let me tell you the good stuff, and then we got to get out of here, Landry, because they're probably already at work. They're sitting in the parking lot listening to this, cussing at me because it took him 20 minutes and Cass is supposed to get over. But what's the good news? The good news is I believe people in industries, there's certain industries that are going to create generational wealth. And I truly believe that the insurance industry is one of those. What do I mean by that? Listen, cars are going to be, for the next 5, 10, 15 years, done at body shops by humans. And those humans are going to require a certain amount of money. Now, they're going to have their different technology and all that shit too. Don't get me wrong by that. But the fact is, if it costs $1,500 a year to insure a Tahoe, okay, maybe that goes down to $1,000. It's still a transfer of risk. There's still a risk that has to be assigned. And I don't think you're going to see, I think you're going to see services save 90% efficiency, but I don't think you're going to see the transfer of risk go down. Yes, cars are going to get more smarter and things like that. But what I say is you're going to see these industries collapse and not being able to really produce because they're going to lose. Their revenue is going to shrink because their product is going to be less to create. I don't think it's going to be as drastic for things like independent insurance agents or insurance agents altogether. I truly believe that we're still going to be charging, even if we're charging on that $1,500 Tahoe. I want to hear this from you, Landry, to close this out. If we're charging $1,500 on a Tahoe today, and let's say it gets so safe that it goes to $700, well, we're still going to be making 10, 15, 12, whatever the cars are paying on $700. when I think a lot of other people are going to be getting a national income of $5,000 to $10,000 a month, and that's what they're going to be living on. But people like you and I are still going to be able to have unlimited income, and that is going to be an unbelievable advantage. What do you say closing this out, Landry, on that?
Yeah, I think there's a scenario there, exactly what you said, is cars will eventually become safer and safer to drive, so therefore the risk goes down to an extent, but it's probably going to be a lot more expensive to make those cars in some ways with the amount of technology and things that we see.
Good
I mean,
point.
you already see it. Teslas are great, and when they came out of the gate, they were stupid cheap for me to insure. But now everybody's realized, oh, well, if they have an accident, it's usually a lot more of an easier scenario that it is totaled in that sense, if you damage that battery. So definitely get that. But at the same time, to prove your point too, it's not like the storms are slowing down. It almost seem like they're ramping up too. So you got property insurance. It's obviously going to keep going up and keep going to, as long as
their predictive modeling did not work very well on that.
No, they're having to redo all those predictive modelings right now.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's one thing you still can't predict is the freaking weather, you know?
That's right.
So
exactly.
Yeah, Mother Nature. Landry, it's unbelievable. I'm excited for you. You're going to come back in the next month or two. And what we're going to do is we're probably going to do maybe 5 to 10 this year. And we'll just see where everything is updating. And then I would love to take these 5, 6 podcasts we do at the end of the year, feed it into our chat or Gemini and ask it, how have we progressed? Right? Where has this conversation, what were we talking about here that we're now talking about here? That'd be a pretty cool thing to do, you know?
Hey, and everybody reach out to me, find me on Facebook. If you
Landry, tell them, sorry, I forgot. Tell them what you're doing real quick. Tell them.
So, I mean, I as I've been speaking a lot about this, different big guys, different conferences, it's clear that people want to figure this out and want to ask questions, and they're asking the right questions. So, I'm trying to figure out a way to do that. I do have a way to do that, but we're going to create a community for that. So if you just find me on Facebook, Landry Fields, there's only 2 of us. I'm the lighter skinned, shorter one. Yeah, I'm planning on something. So it'll be out by the end of June, early July, probably, for that, as far as a community, in order to kind of really focus, not necessarily on the insurance portion of that. There's plenty of groups for that, but really let's talk about the AI side of things and really where that's going. And we've obviously only scratched the surface on it today.
Wow, dude. I really, really, truly appreciate all you're doing. You're leading really great. Everybody keep in mind, you go to AI BrainShare, going to be open in registration August 1st. Landry is going to be there. I've got big rooms and I've got kind of smaller rooms. Landry will be one of the people that will be on the bigger room for people, because I know he's going to draw a lot of people. Guys, listen to what he's doing right now. Can you fricking imagine what he's going to be doing in January? Can you imagine what we're going to be doing? And a lot of agents. This is the reason why you got to come, so you can learn. This is not rocket science. We're all going to figure it out. And to be honest with you, Landry, we all do things differently in our agencies today. I see us doing a lot more common things in the future, right? Because it's just going to make sense for a 6 person agency just to kind of lock in with maybe somebody else's LLM or services. I think that could possibly happen. I really, truly do. It always starts out individually, right? Generators started out, loyal listeners, inside businesses. Problem with it was the business would burn down because it wasn't being maintained. And so Thomas Edison said, hey, why don't we create these things, these electric generation power plants, and then we'll just pipe it in and we'll be in charge of all that, and it can be safe. It dropped costs dramatically. It created a safer environment. It was really, really better. Then we started to see that with drivers, right? We saw it with other technology, but we can see it with drives. Like a lot of people had their own server. They would have their own server in their business, right? And then it moved to the cloud, and it got way less, and it got a lot more secure, because the cloud is Google Drive and OneDrive is way more secure than most agencies. Let's just be real. So it got, you see that, how that's happening, loyal listeners. So now we're going through that same progression where we're doing things the old way, and now we're going to start doing them this new way. A lot of people will have an in-house LLM. In the future, it's going to be advantageous for us to for our LLMs to talk, because then I can share information with Landry, because Landry does nonprofits and we do nonprofits, and what can we share from each other maybe to learn? It's more than just going to a conference. It's having our bots talk. Hey, everybody out there, you know what I do, because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. Be sure to go to agencyintelligencemanual.com and get that manual for free. This has been Cassie's Fields. We're out.